The 2019 remake of Pet Sematary, along with the book and previous film adaptation, are stories that are filled with dread. Nearly every character is haunted by past trauma or makes decisions that carry extreme mental and sometimes physical pain. This film is extremely heavy on the viewers as we get to see a seemingly normal American family relive their troubled past while also watching it get ripped apart at the seams in the present. This film is a bit of a slow burn, but its themes and ideas are unrelenting. The film relies its horror heavily on coping with loss, teaching children about death, and the idea of extending life. Let's talk about it. The thought of losing someone is always a terrifying and depressing thought. The idea of losing your own child to something that is easily preventable could be even more dreadful. That is exactly what happens in Pet Sematary. The story follows the family of Lewis and Rachel Creed with their two kids, Ellie and Gage, as they move into their new home in a small town of Maine. After the family pet cat named Church dies, Lewis soon finds out from their neighbor Judd that they live near a haunted burial ground where things come back to life if buried there. Well, the word life can be used very loosely in this story's context, as everything that comes back to life seems to be a hollow, lifeless shell of what they used to be. In each iteration of the Stephen King classic, a large death always follows the audience learning of the Pet Sematary's power. The death in this new vision might be the worst though, since Ellie was distracted by the already zombified cat Church walking down the street when she is struck by the oncoming semi. So, if the cat was never buried at the cemetery, this moment might have never happened. The other death that haunts throughout the story is Rachel dealing with the repressed thoughts of her terminally ill sister horrifically dying when she was home alone with her. I will touch more on that subject later. The film establishes two types of death that we deal with throughout our lives, one being sudden and accidental, and the other being the mentally challenging battle with natural illness. What this aims to do is toy with our everyday fear of death that haunts all of us in some fashion. Similar to what I touched on in my Promising Young Woman review talking about the 5 stages of grief, we are shown a similar battle in this film. After Ellie gets hit by the semi-trailer, we get to see the parents, specifically Lewis, go through the 5 stages. We see him crying on the road, angry with himself for not stopping her, showing lots of emotion at the funeral, and sinking into depression when he goes to visit Judd. With this being a typical Stephen King story though, we never see the acceptance stage. We get to see Lewis slowly go insane and lose connection with reality as he goes to dig up his daughter from her grave. He then carries her all the way to the haunted burial ground to, well, bury her. This movie makes everything feel so realistic when it sets up all of the deaths that are seen throughout the film. Most of us have lost someone to an illness or in a very sudden, unthinkable accident, so we can connect very well with this family. One of the largest talking points throughout this film is surrounding children and death. Lewis and Rachel have a large disagreement when they have a small talk with Ellie discussing what exactly is death. After their cat Church is hit by a passing car, they talk about how they are going to break the news to their daughter. This is when Rachel breaks down and has a PTSD-like flashback of her older sister Zelda. Zelda suffered from spinal meningitis and hated Rachel for not being sick like her. One night when Rachel was about 10 years old and home alone with Zelda, she was scared to take her food up to her, so she put it on a dumbwaiter. Zelda ended up falling down the shaft to her death and Rachel saw it all play out. Rachel never got over what happened to her sister and always felt responsible for her sister's death. It also seems like her family never helped her move on from what happened to her that night, so she was forced to repress that horrible night into the back of her mind. Amy Simons, who played Rachel, talked about this backstory in an interview.
So having had taken care of somebody myself, my father, and lost him, there are all of these emotions, and it's not always like melancholy. There's also maniacal laughter, and there's also sort of madness. And in that scene in the book, she runs the like range of emotions. But what's really great about that passage, and I thought about this when I was doing it, is that prior to that moment, she keeps this part of her locked away and denies it, and then once she hits this moment, that's when that's when the floodgates open, and I think there's a moment where Lewis even asks her to stop.
With the character of Rachel being haunted by this one night when she was young, she is not allowing herself to move on to be able to help her daughter learn more about the process of life and death. She is hindering both of them to learn acceptance skills and is holding herself in this dark state of mind. Unfortunately, she never truly gets over these past thoughts because just as soon as she starts to work through it, they lose Ellie. The next time she returns home, there is a half-alive version of her daughter hugging her, which sends her into a shock where she is reminded of the memory that has been tormenting her for the past 30 years or so. The idea of children learning about death is always a very fragile topic, but it is very necessary to help them through tough times and understand what life is all about. If they don't learn in a caring environment, some experiences may haunt them for life. While the focus of this film is about bringing people back to life through an evil burial ground, the film has a lot to say about the idea of extending life. With Lewis's profession being an ER doctor, this is a thing he has to deal with on a daily basis. There are some people losing their fight to stay alive, other people on life support, or some even recovering from life-saving surgeries. Modern medicine is a highly debated topic. How far should society allow doctors to go to keep someone alive? John Lithgow, who played Judd, had this to say about the story.
This is what's so extraordinary about the story that Stephen King devised. There are people in your life that you love so much you feel you cannot do without them. So what would you do if you had the chance to bring them back when you lose them? It's the Faustian question. Big choices like that, big mortal choices like that. And you never know until you're there. Until you feel that grief, you never know how you're going to respond to it. Now, that's this movie, this story gives you one version of what might happen.
To expand on what John Lithgow was saying, for example, someone may not know how it feels to have someone on life support. Until they are placed in that situation, it is hard to tell if keeping the person alive or pulling the plug is the correct choice. Pet Sematary allows for that thought process to be taken a step further and lets the viewers think about what they would do if they could bring people back to life. Should we be allowed to play God? Would anyone be the same if they were brought back to life? Isn't passing away and grieving just part of life? There are a lot of questions and weird outcomes that could be at play. This really isn't a topic that can ever have a clear-cut answer, since medical advancements aren't that good yet, but there may be a time when it is possible. When Lithgow says this is just a version of what might happen, he couldn't be more correct. If a conclusion on this topic from this film should be taken, it is to let the dead rest, but that may not ultimately be the correct answer. That is what makes topics like these so highly debated. Nobody knows what truly is the correct answer. I have always enjoyed this aspect of the story though. What would you do if you had the Pet Sematary in your backyard? It is the type of question I feel none of us could answer unless we were placed into the situation ourselves, but I love movies that challenge the idea of how strong the human desire is. It's a debate you can have with anyone, and everyone would come up with differing answers. Holding the power of resurrection in our own hands seems improbable, but not impossible, so there's a lot of depth to explore in this classic horror story. Pet Sematary is a film that plays on the viewer's everyday fear of death and being haunted by the past, while also throwing in some supernatural elements that balance out really nicely. It is also a movie that focuses largely on the idea that things could be much better if people can accept things and move on. Horrible things can happen in the past, but it is not good to never accept the fact that it is over and done with. People will pass away in everyone's life, but death is inevitable, even if it is sometimes unexpected. Those thoughts that haunt people need to be dealt with in a healthy manner and put to rest, and hopefully not at a cursed burial ground where they can come back to life. Just like the tagline of the movie suggests, sometimes dead is better. Thanks for checking out my review of Pet Sematary. If you liked it, dropping a like, leaving a comment, and hitting that subscribe button helps me out a lot. If you like this review, I also have more on my channel you can check out. Have a good one, everybody.